What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing a tier list for Media Blackout on Donny Vermilion. Brian, let us hear the mutation.
Donny Vermilion, the best map in the game, is where we have to gather 20 xenon crystals and return them to the stabilizer in the middle of our base. The crystals appear once lava recedes from the low ground. But we need to flee to the high ground while the lava is up. There is no fog of war. Missiles fly in from the edges of the map and shoot our buildings. And all enemies, including the missiles, are cloaked.
Okay, so Tutu and Stixbender are in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Seem to be doing okay a bit.
Seems to be doing
Mostly.
okay. Mostly.
Kinda sick.
Kinda sick? Yikes. Get better soon.
Yeah, quite sick actually.
Yikes.
It's fine.
It's fine. Well, you should probably, get well soon. Tutu, how are we gonna rank the commanders this week?
Missile command, you can't clear the map quickly enough so that you won't face nukes. So everyone's gonna face nukes. That means missile command will be a thing, and those with good detection will do better because everything's invisible. And darkness is really annoying on this map because if you don't know where the crystals spawn, you will have some problems. So commanders who can find the crystals or have good mobility to get to places to search for crystals will be good here.
Anything to add, Stixbender?
Yeah, there is a map guide on SC2 Co-op, which I highly recommend using, which I will yeet the link at CTG, which shows the crystal spawn patterns of where all the possible locations are for the crystal spawn after each lava surge. I highly recommend using this map.
Using this map.
Soloing this with Stukov without using that map to guide me to where the crystals were able to spawn. I failed like 20 times.
Rip.
And then the first attempt using that map, I won it easily. Because it was literally a matter of I didn't have the crystal spawns well enough memorized.
How could you not have memorized the crystal spots yet? My goodness. The map's been out for, what, 7 years?
Yeah, I never was.
I didn't memorize it until this one.
My goodness.
Yikes.
I didn't really memorize it.
Also, when I'm not playing Darkness Mutation, usually it's a lot easier to just have finished the map by wave 6. So like anything after that, it's like I have no idea where they spawn.
Oh well. I guess some people haven't memorized this map yet. This is the best map.
I also have that chart. I also have I put that in my shorts, so
wow,
it's there too.
Wow.
So I would point out that if we don't have it memorized, then probably the people watching this video don't have the spawn pattern memorized. So
my goodness, you're not Donny enough. Anyway, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Early on, you can lure, but it's pretty much it's close to impossible. So because it's so dark, you can't see anything. So the good thing is that the first 2 waves come to you, and then the 8-minute double the 4 crystals on the ground near the expos. Those enemies are all fixed. So you probably will get enough biomass for at least 1 brutalist by then. And then as you get more and more as you get your 6 ultimate evolutions, it'll become easier and easier to clear stuff because your 6 units are so strong. Leviathans will also protect the overseers from getting killed. After 15 minutes, you'll probably keep the brutalists at home and only use the Leviathans because the brutalists can take out nukes, and you just patrol them, and all your spare minerals will be used on spore crawlers for detection.
So pure.
I put him in B.
How about you, Stixbender?
So, yeah, there's especially depending on comp, but there should be a lot of biomass availability in the early game before you really have to do anything, because the first 3 crystal spawns don't really make you attack anything. Quick question, Tutu. How you did not expand, I'm guessing?
I did not expand.
Yeah, your brutalistic defense. That's kind of what I thought. How bad is it if your ally tries to expand and then needs help? Your brutalist can deep tunnel, so it's okay. It's just that you have to be careful you don't get nuked the moment you leave, right?
You just let them die.
Yeah, that,
That's
I guess
inhumane.
also works.
My goodness.
I feel like there's some people who are playing the mutation who kind of can't solo, and they might actually need their ally to live. Anyways, I digress. The biggest worry for if you're going to be doing the early game without farming, which I'm not sure how darkness wrecks that, but I'm sure we move unseen completely makes that incredibly difficult. Be aware that the second wave is quite large and does sometimes spawn in transports, or sometimes not. But usually, yes.
Usually, yes. It's a 6-minute one.
I've noticed that this map is quite interesting with its sometimes yes, but usually no, or sometimes no, but usually yes.
Usually, it spawns at 6 minutes at the western high ground area, unless you've attacked that area. Then it will spawn from
Yes.
the south high ground, and they will come in transports.
Yes. Anyways, you will need quite a few talking nests to deal with that wave because it's actually a very large wave. It's not quite Chain of Ascension 7-minute wave, but like it's still pretty big.
All right, so where do you have them?
Which does mean that you will have a lot of biomass after that, but you also have to make sure you do efficient use of your toxic nets so you don't just straight up die to that wave. Yeah, Brutalists are your only missile defense, so you can't really afford to expand for yourself. Just can't, or you won't be able to defend against the missiles. Yeah, I think B tier kind of makes sense because your ultimate evolutions should have everything under control just fine.
All right. I actually initially had them in C because I thought the luring would be really difficult because A, the map is not that intuitive to lure on, and B, cloaky stuff. But since both of you said B, I'm okay with B.
Yeah, the reason it's okay that luring is not possible to do really here is that it's like, yeah, but it's Vermilion problem. You don't have to attack Amon for the first 10 minutes.
Without prestige, still B.
I think without prestige is the best choice.
Yeah, P0 is optimal here.
Cool. Alarak, where do we have him?
Your best missile defense is, again, like as
Destroyers.
always, destroyers. So if you don't have P3, your life's going to be considerably more difficult, as in you don't have an easy missile defense. If you are P3, you have a very easy missile defense. It's a very dramatic difference. Once you get enough destroyers and havocs at home, you can defend against just about everything, and you're going to want Alarak plus mothership clearing, and it's mostly just going to ideally be lots and lots of hero micro. You deal with all of the enemies defending the crystals and all the bases with Alarak plus mothership. You leave destroyers and havocs at home to deal with the missiles. You can use cannons for detection, I guess, as well. You just need detection for your destroyers, and your destroyers can destroy all the missiles. Just basically top bar in hero solo.
What should be your first detection, cannon or havoc?
Havoc only requires a cyber core, but yeah, mobile detection is good. Havoc only requires a cyber core. I would start with a havoc. As for Alarak's letter grade, probably an A tier. He's got all the tools he needs. If you're not P3, he is definitely not A tier.
How about you, Tutu?
If you can't play Alarak without F2A, don't use him because you need to like keep your havocs still so they provide detection for destroyers. I built a cannon or two early on just because I don't want my buildings to get hurt too much. If you have an ally, you're gonna get a lot less hurt, so that's not really necessary. With P3, I did as Stetmann described, which is you just use Alarak mothership with some supplicants and havocs for detection, clearing bases while you patrol destroyers at home, and you have havocs spread around so that you can see the missiles coming. For Protoss commanders, most Protoss commanders, and some Zerg, it's like spores and cannons are not good enough because if they die, you won't be able to see the nukes and you can't really hit them.
Yes.
So you want like the unit detectors to ensure that you can see the missiles.
There are splitter missiles that sometimes target units, but the havocs are cloaked, so it shouldn't be that much of an issue, right?
They hit cloaked units without detection, and I believe they one-shot havocs. However, the little missile they shoot is also uses the same missile logic of being a targetable thing.
Hmm.
It's just an extremely fast flying targetable thing, which means it basically can be shot down, but only by hit scan.
P3 is A, non-P3 is like D.
So Shadow of Death required for Alarak to be an A. Arcturus, what do we have him?
He is a Terran commander. Terran commanders do very well here because they can repair and they
hit
have
scan.
hit scan. So yeah, he also has ESOs, so you can search for the missile, not the crystals easily. You can also see where the enemies are coming, and the enemies also stay still, so you can bomb them even if you can't see them. All the ground units will die. If you're using P1, you can gas them, and then they will die. The issue is that because your ESOs take a lot of space, you're gonna need like to have a few more bunkers to like protect them from the missiles. And you need some turrets or something, or witness to give detection for those bunkers. But otherwise, he's pretty good because he counters all the mutators pretty well. So I think S is good for him.
How about you, Sixbender?
That was like the least confident S I've ever heard, but yeah, I agree. It's just basically going to be you slap down bunkers everywhere. You don't need that many because bunkers are incredibly DPS dense hit scan, so they just chew through missiles like nothing. You can even give your troopers blue guns to make them chew through faster. Make sure you get the bunker range upgrade. That's a good upgrade.
Very good upgrade.
And the bunker health upgrade does apply to ESOs as well, so if any missiles do stray through, that'll also help, save your ESOs from disaster case, which I guess that's worth it for only 100 minerals and 100 gas. And remember that when your witnesses are in siege mode, their vision radius is their entire effect radius. So they have huge detection radius when you sieged up your witnesses. So yeah, with all that and the fact that you can scan for crystals with ESOs by just firing all over the map in the general area, allowing you to check the entire map within seconds. Yeah, Manx is an easy S tier. It's very easy mutation for him.
Without prestige, still S?
Yeah, you don't need prestige.
Artie, where do we have him?
Artanis, how shoot missile? Excellent question.
Archons!
Meanwhile, you're having to spam out detection and try to keep detection alive, which will probably be photon cannons, ? And it's incredibly painful to keep your base alive against the missiles, and you have to somehow go out and clear and collect crystals, which is going to be a real pain, especially with darkness. You have to somehow check all the areas, and
unless of course you know where they spawn.
but even if you have the map, it's still like you have to check 3 different areas, which, if you're a commander that can actually defend against the missiles, that's fine. But if you're a commander who has to be manually casting psi storms to keep your base in one piece, you got a problem. I'd argue if anyone is eligible for F tier, it honestly is probably Artanis, because missile command plus we move unseen is just so nasty for him, especially on a long map like this one.
How about you, Tutu?
I didn't put him in F tier just because I don't think he's completely useless. He still can do stuff. If you're not spending time searching, you're gonna be like you're gonna warp in like stuff to fight against a wave that suddenly hits your base, and then now your army split. You might not have enough to kill. Your observers get themselves killed a lot unless you're fighting Protoss, which means the cannons might be hitting your ground units. But if you're fighting against like missile turrets and spore crawlers, they'll just kill the observers.
Yep.
And that means like P3 is not that good here, because you, at least with P0, you get an extra, like you get like a little warning before you get a like extra few seconds to like take out the spore crawler or turret. He's terrible though, so I put him in E.
All right. Are you gonna fight for F, Sixbender?
I mean, I guess that he can contribute, so he's not actually F. I feel like we've actually set the bar too low with you hurt your ally by existing, because man, that's like almost never.
Yeah, but that's the bar for F. I think it's a fair bar because F is a terrible grade to give. Anyway, RD and E. Dehaka, where do we have him?
Dehaka suffers like from we move unseen because he can't go out and kill stuff early on. So he can't get essence, and that means it takes you some time before you can get the level 5 detection upgrade. And with missile command, your buildings get shot really quickly and you can't see them until you get a primal worm.
Yes.
And with an ally, it hurts less, but you might lose an extractor early on, and that sucks. With that said, though, once he gets his detection upgrade, he's okay because Dehaka himself can go around and fight. And then just have all creeper hosts at home with lots of primal worms to keep to have detection. Make sure you have detection at all times. And the greater primal worms, you can summon them anywhere. Although you can't really see the nuke, but you can use the Q ability
The laser
to
thing.
shoot down nukes immediately.
Yeah, you can laser
And
it
you
down.
can use that spell on your regular primal worms at home if the nuke gets that close.
Yes.
Yes. But it takes so long for you to get started that I put him in D.
I think Dehaka really is like evidence of what I've said before, where missile command in solos is like it's not polarity or boombots, but it's the next best thing.
Or the
The
next
fact that you
worst
have
thing.
twice as many is a fact, or the next worst thing, whichever way you want to look at it. The fact that you have twice as many missiles going at your base is just so painful. And in Dehaka's case, it's the difference between you might lose an extractor, although there's actually a decent chance you don't lose an extractor, versus if your build order isn't fully optimized for missile command, you can just lose the game before the first attack wave to missiles alone. That's Dehaka against this mutator in solo. It's awful.
True.
Because you have twice as many missiles going for your base. So, yeah. Anyways, even in duo, early game missiles are going to be a huge pain, and you are going to have to basically put your entire game plan revolving around how do I handle missiles until I, get detection, and then take advantage of the fact that at least you don't have to attack Amon for the first 10 minutes in order to allow yourself to get Dehaka to be a detector so he can actually do anything with his life.
It would be much nicer if the missiles dropped Ests, but can't have nice things. So, letter.
D tier feels a little harsh considering how hard he steamrolls later on, but I'm not completely opposed to it because, your early game is quite rough. It's not nearly as rough if you're doing compared to soloing, but it's still rough.
Can't spell Dehaka without D. Can't believe this is the first time you're saying that. Dehaka just doesn't get D, but there we go. I finally said it.
Dehaka's good generally. It's just missile command is his Achilles heel.
I finally said it.
We move unseen just makes it worse.
And we move unseen is also really bad for Dehaka. Dehaka's got it. There's two things Dehaka's bad at. It's early game hit scan and detection.
Phoenix, where do we have him?
Phoenix does indeed know what hit scan is. It's carriers and sentries. But carriers, you will probably end up using carriers as your later game hit scan, simply because they have more effective range, with the interceptors flying much further away from the carriers than the attacker sentries. Basically, whatever prestige you use, which I don't think should dramatically matter, you're going to be using champions plus Phoenix suits to run around the map, murderizing everything. Well, you just have carriers and or sentries just sitting at home defending the base from missiles and cannons because you need detection, but you can use observers with your cannons too. Just lots of detection, lots of hit scan, and you'll be fine to defend against missiles. Attack the map with your champions. Your champions are more than strong enough to roll over this map easily. Even without P2, you definitely do not need P2 for your champions to steamroll this map. And remember that the Dragoon suit can one-shot nukes with a single cast of E. So, that's helpful. Probably an A tier commander. He's pretty straightforward and easy, I would think.
How about you, Tutu?
That's interesting. I used P2. I think P2 is better than the other ones just because your carriers, even though they're weaker, are still strong enough to take out missiles, and they are cheaper. So you basically play P2, champions fly around killing stuff. Arbiter suit is nice as well. So you can have like your
Detection.
observers are fine, but arbiters like much stronger,
Thank you.
and they can take some hits from missile turrets. You can also teleport to wherever the attack wave is in case there's some trouble, or drop down a suit and spin around or shoot your fire at the darkness and they will still die, or most of them will die. I think A is fine.
I initially had him in B because I forgot about carriers, but yeah, A sounds about right. Karax, where do we have him?
Well, at least Karax has things relatively easy because monoliths are hit scan, cannons are detection, and have pretty good attack speed, so they can actually sometimes break through point defense rows. Early on, if your ally has mechanical structures, you don't have to worry about missiles for the first like 10 minutes. Repair beam literally solos the entire mutator for 10 minutes. And then as for finding crystals, use the observer to give my advice for how to hide observers over the tops of cliffs, because if you're right next to the edge of a cliff, as long as you aren't over the lava, you can't get hit by lava spouts. You just have to be over high ground, even if you're right next to the ledge. So in order to park observers places where they'll be able to check for crystals nice and quickly, the general rule, I think, is that ramps have two modes in this map. There either is detection right next to the ramp, or the ramp is completely undefended. So generally, if you find a ramp that doesn't have detector spawned next to it, detection static defense spawned next to it, it probably means you can park near that ramp and be completely safe, unless an attack wave happens to wander through. So that's my advice for if you have absolutely no idea where to hide your observers. I think that Karax is probably able to make A tier because he can defend his allies. If you don't use P1, you have Unity Barrier on workers, which is really helpful to prevent workers from just suddenly dying when they're trying to go for crystals. Another thing is that even if you don't have your army there to grab a crystal, if your worker gets there to grab the crystal, you could just glass them all from orbit. Don't be afraid to just stick like a single pylon and a single cannon on the low ground when grabbing a crystal, just to draw their aggro away from your worker. Because even if the cannon and pylon die,
it's like 250 minerals.
Way more important to make sure that your worker doesn't die.
Yes.
And if all the enemies aggro on that cannon and then you just vaporize them with Spear of Adun, then your worker could just walk in, grab the crystal, and everyone's happy.
How about you, Tutu?
For those who haven't seen the shorts, you should not, when you're grabbing the crystal, do not click the crystal. Click next to the crystal. Because if you click the crystal and you leave vision, darkness will cause the worker to stop moving.
Yes.
So you should click next to the crystal, and then when the worker stops moving, he'll sit next to it, and then you click the crystal, and then he'll take it home.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what you should do. As for Karax, I don't have much to add. I think A is good. Carriers for late game, that's what I made like a few.
Unanimous A. Without prestige, still A. There we go. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
Kerrigan, I did hero only solo. Just make lots of Omega worms, spread them everywhere. You can even put them on islands where there are no more enemies so that missiles get lured away. If you see a nuke heading in that direction, just like, oh, not important. Even if you don't have detection, you can see the nuke on the mini-map. Like if you spread overlords. You can spread overlords even on cleared islands, so you can see the general direction of where the nukes are coming from, and then you can stop them. While Kerrigan goes out, clears everything, comes home for some healing, and then goes out again. I put her in A.
Why not S?
You got to work a lot. And if you're not on top of the nukes, you lose everything. So you got to work.
How about you, Stixbender?
I was kind of thinking of putting her in B for two simple reasons. One, if Kerrigan hero unit dies, it's all over. The bigger thing was that if your ally has poor missile defense, you could do very little to help them because your best response to missiles is just spam a bunch of worms, which is only your own structures, not ally structures. Also, if your ally isn't careful, they might just be like minding their own business next to a worm, and then suddenly a nuke comes out of nowhere and decides to land on that worm and vaporize half their army. And if their army is currently fighting an attack wave, the nuke has lower aggro priority than the enemy attack wave. So that is a thing that can happen. I have had it happen.
Really?
I don't think it's frequently going to happen. I think this is like a bit of a fluke, like rare thing. But it's technically possible for you to end up accidentally completely obliterating your ally's army. Which would make it funny.
You can't put that on Kerrigan. What kind of ally would see a giant nuke with a minimap marker heading in his direction with an Omega Worm for detection and not right-click it, or at least retreat into the Omega Worm.
No, if you retreat into the Omega Worm, you're totally making it worse because the nuke's gonna land probably before you can get your whole army to that worm.
Depends what kind of army. Most armies can get in the worm. It loads that quickly, and you can just unload elsewhere. It loads really quickly.
I feel like you're probably setting us up for a clip where someone sees the nuke like as it's going down into the worm, right clicks on the worm to load in. Everyone hugs the worm. 2 units get in. The nuke goes off.
No. It doesn't take anywhere near that long to load it. And come on, if the guy sees,
because it's like a frame before the nuke lands, the army reaches.
You don't see the nuke that late.
Or it's just gonna be like you're gonna see an army loading into a worm, but half of it was air units.
If it's air units, if there's air units, yeah, you can't load them in Omegas. But either way, you see the nuke coming.
There will be a clip of a person doing this.
You see you will see. What?
That's not Kerrigan's fault.
Yeah, that's Kerrigan's fault.
Kind of, this is kind of not the point.
Yeah.
I swear this will be a clip that happens. Anyways, I think the big thing is that Kerrigan can't really defend her ally structures if her ally needs it. So if you're trying to carry on that front, she can't really do that. I'm not convinced that makes her B tier, but that was the reason I was leaning towards B tier. Was entirely she has only a way of defending herself from missiles. Also, you do have to remember to send Kerrigan home if you see a nuke headed towards your actual base, but that's just pay attention to the minimap basically.
Yeah, and one more thing on my end. The map is Donny Vermilion, so if you lose Kerrigan, your army can at least hold on until she arrives back.
If you have an army, you're thinning your worm count enough that you might create problems for yourself, admittedly.
How many worms will it take for your army to be that small? It's 200 per worm.
It's a lot of worms to deal with missile command. Like a lot.
Then you'll probably have enough
worms. You
worms.
might have real estate problems in your main base fitting all the worms.
Then you should have enough worms
for missile command.
Then you should have enough worms that the worms will be able to hold on. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
that is correct.
Yeah, I don't think you'll die to attack wave if Kerrigan. I don't think it's game over if Kerrigan, the hero, dies necessarily.
It depends where she dies. If she dies in Amon's base, it's probably fine. If she dies when you're like fighting for a crystal, then a lava wave comes and you miss crystal, that's really bad. But it's not over. If she dies to an attack wave in your base.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. Ally. Anyway,
how many worms is a lot of worms?
I typically get 2 to 4 per game, or networks, 2 to 4 networks per game.
I was thinking 20 to 30 networks.
How many to you is a lot?
I was thinking 20 to 30 networks.
20.
I had 24 at some point.
24.
And, I had 24 worms, and towards the end, I was floating about 10,000 resources.
There's no way.
10,000 minerals or 10,000 gas? How much gas?
8,000 minerals, 3,000 gas.
There's no way you die to anything with that many worms. There's no way. Your ally might die, but not you.
You need that many worms, by the way, to deal with the missile command CG. You definitely
that many?
A lot of worms. You need a lot of worms if you're just tanking all the missiles. Yes. However,
how long does it take you to?
That's it.
I guess.
If you have enough money after that, then I guess.
I guess if you make 0 spores.
You probably managed to expand, didn't you? Tutu?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
I guess if you make 0 spores, then you will need that many. But come on. Also make spores with your spare minerals.
If you build only a few spores, they do literally nothing because point defense drones. You literally, for spores to do anything at all, you need so many spores so densely packed that they can actually overwhelm missiles. Plus, if you build that many spores, now you're luring more missiles to come towards your base, which means more point defense drones coming towards your base, which means you need more spores because you have fewer structures that are worms out on the map, which means if you make spores, you're probably actually making it harder for yourself unless you make like 40 spores.
You can't afford 40 spores if you're floating 8,000 minerals. Just putting it out there.
True.
Also, I'm not saying all the spores. Wait, let me finish. Let me finish. I'm not saying all the spores have to be in your base. Remember when Tutu said you can have overlords floating on cleared high ground areas? You can also put spores there so that the missiles will have even more places to go to and get shot down before they connect. So you can have worms and spores working each other. I'm not saying either or. I'm saying both can work. at the same time.
That's a lot of work, but it does work. Yeah, that's effective.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, this is so much argument for nothing. All of us agree that Kerrigan's A tier.
No, I was still leaning towards B, but
You're-
it's fine.
You're still saying
I'm
B?
okay with it.
Don't forget that you can basically teleport workers to the crystal and maintain vision.
Yes.
Yes, the fact that you can teleport workers to the crystals is a big deal. Okay, I'm fine with A.
Also, immobilization wave is still pretty good. Let me just put it out there.
Wave is still pretty good. This is definitely true.
All right, A tier. Oh, sorry.
Uh,
A tier. Stat boy, where do we have him?
I don't remember how he deals with missiles. Tutu, can you help me out here real quick?
Corruptors with the E ability and spore crawlers.
Do you actually get through point defense drones reliably?
If they're not nukes, I don't care. I just let them hit, and then drones are repairing
Okay,
them.
that's what I thought. And the thing is that worked because Gary can obviously solo the map without even any effort, as long as you have Super Gary so that you can actually detect things. So don't you dare use P1 or else you will suffer the consequences of your folly. Let's see, how do I put how easily Gary could solo this map? So at one point, I did a P2 hero solo of this map because someone asked me to Gary solo this map. So I felt like, sure, I'll Gary solo this map. So I soloed the map with Gary. And then someone decided they had to show me up because apparently this was a challenge. Like I'd thrown a gauntlet apparently without even realizing it. And someone decided to do it with level 1 Stetmann. And then which means you don't even have Super Gary. And then someone decided to do a level 1 P0 Stetmann. So standard Gary, and then someone did no mining. So we had no mining Stetmann doing this with level 0 on P0 against, this mission with no mutators, but this mission with P0, level 1, no mining Gary solo of the entire map.
Cool.
The ease with which Gary can steamroll the map is insane. So seriously, it's fine if you're putting all your resources on defending against missiles. Gary is the most amazing thing ever.
He is. Plus your Statlights nullify darkness.
Satellites.
Yeah, plus Statlights nullify darkness so you'll know where the crystals are. Because Statlights don't care about the lava spouts. They're fine. They can see even if they get disabled.
They don't get disabled by lava.
Stetmann is S tier, and very easily at that, because he has a missile defense, and that's all it needs when Gary can just walk through the map like it's absolutely nothing, and he has omniscience.
All right. Tutu, how about you?
Yeah, exactly. The cherry on top is just the Statlights, just nullifying like the search for crystals. You just, as you're naturally spreading Statlights, you're gonna enter areas where the crystals might spawn. And if you don't spread quickly, you can still use the Gary zone and just drop some like in the further areas.
All right.
So yeah.
Cool.
S tier.
Stukov, where do we have him?
I used P1 for this one. I don't think P3 is a good choice with the lava because you got to split the bunkers. With missiles, you kind of you got to spread out a lot. Anyways, I used P1 mass tanks with just because the bunkers are hit scan, P1 bunkers, so you just defend against missiles easily that way. The problem with Stukov was keeping overseers alive because you have to keep them back, not let them get shot by Vikings or missile turrets that love to shoot air.
Yes.
Clearing is pretty annoying. I put Stukov in B.
All right. How about you, Stickspender?
So don't use P3 because here's the thing. Normally P3 handles missiles because it can intercept the missiles as they're flying over. So nukes aren't a problem because they just float over your curtain of infested and get shot down. Here, your curtain of infested doesn't reliably have detection with it. So you might just have the nuke reaches towards your base. At which point, the fact that you don't have non-P3 bunkers where the bunker can actually shoot means that your base just blows up. You have to see the nuke coming, grab infested manually and tell them to go defend your base or move the psi emitter, but then you're not attacking, so that's just terrible. And grab a whole bunch of infested manually, get them all bunched up together, get detection in place, and shoot down the nuke. No, it's terrible. It's extremely painful. Don't use P3 bunkers. Use non-P3 bunkers. They are much better.
Okay.
Non-P3 bunkers will make this easy for defense against the missiles. And then I did use Diamondbacks. I did not have trouble with my Diamondbacks dying. I mean, I lost a couple of them, but Diamondbacks are cheap and expendable with P1. So, and even without P1, it's not that bad because Diamondbacks can trade with Amon actually pretty decently. Overseers are great and all in the early game. You want to transcend past the Overseer and move on to the Brood Queen
Queen.
with Ocular Parasite. Ocular Parasite, make any unit detector and have +5 vision radius, which when put on top bar, like the Alexander and the Apocalypse, well, top bar already has a comical amount of vision radius. The Alexander already has, like, what, 20-something vision radius? So you give it +5 vision radius and detection in that entire area, and lo and behold, the Alexander can see an entire plateau.
It's a
and
bio
detect the
launcher
whole thing.
range.
It works great with tanks too, because it lets your siege tanks see as far as they can shoot, or almost as far as they can shoot. I think I still can't see quite as far as they can shoot, but can see almost as far as they can shoot.
Siege tanks at
It's
18
amazing.
range. Stukov tanks at 18 range, and
Yes,
I
they have
think
18
12
range,
vision.
and I don't remember 12 vision.
Something
Okay,
like that.
so they are one short of seeing as far as they shoot when you have Ocular Parasite on your tanks.
Without prestige, still B.
Without prestige, still probably B. I don't think it makes a huge difference. To be honest, to me, it felt like the big expense that was problematic was setting up the bunkers and all that early game, because once you get the ball rolling with like your missile defense setup, it's pretty affordable to build an army. It's once you have all your resources going to army, by that point it's in the mid game and you have enough, army and
Sure.
a fully built 2-base economy to just be fine, even without the discount.
Mr. Swann, where do we have him?
He's actually quite good against this mutation. So he's that one guy who sees missiles and everyone's like, you need hit scan to kill them, and Swann says
Nope.
no, and then he puts literally more than 10 projectiles per second on his missile turret.
And the laser drill.
He will overwhelm that point defense drone. He will show the world. And I know that we've mentioned this against every missile command mutator, but it's funny, so I want to make a point of it. It's great to make points of such important things like liking and subscribing to this video. If you build mass missile turret with Swann, then your base will be easily defended from missiles. You can easily defend your allies' base with missile turrets from missiles. If you use P1, instead of floating factories, you could use science vessels, and that just works. Yeah, whatever army you feel like making once you have all your missile defense set up. Basically, you get to dedicate most of your resources past the early game to offense, because the defense is just cheap and affordable because you have free repair. So early on, you don't even need to defend against the missiles early game. Yeah, once you get everything set up, you just dedicate all your focus on clearing, and you really only need you can really start clearing once you have 2 or 3 science vessels that can heal each other to make sure they stay alive, as they just sit there and provide vision for the laser drill. If the laser drill just angrily chews through everything, at least that's still your P1. If you're not P1, then you just use top bar abilities, and I presume you're not P1 because you might be not P1 because you haven't unlocked it. But if you're not P1 because you're choosing to use the top bar, then that's probably because you know how to use the top bar, or you're trying to learn how to use the top bar. So it should be fine to assume that you can use the top bar then. I think that Swann is an A tier. I kind of thought of him as an S tier personally. I really, really like Swann as missile command. But the S tiers are just so good. I'm not sure you can quite kind of compare with them.
How about you, Tutu?
The thing I don't like is science vessels, but they heal each other, so they're better than oracles. I think I spent too many minerals on defense. I don't think I needed that many, but I won base P0 Wraith, and it was good. Just gotta keep the science vessels alive.
Sure.
So yeah, I put him in A.
All right. Tychus, where do we have him?
Tychus, for this one, Sirius is the main. Well, this is assuming Lone Wolf, because if you're not Lone Wolf, then missile defense will be, I think, a lot worse. Assuming Lone Wolf, Sirius is the main clearer, and then everyone else just stays home and defends missiles. So Nux, Tychus stays at the ramp to fight the waves, and then I even had Vega sit in the corner so that I could get the buff but not interfere. So Vega sat in the corner.
The real 500 IQ play.
Your ally space.
The real 500 IQ plays to mind control observers and overseers. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't need. But
wow. Anyway, continue.
No, so I made lots. I don't think I got any gear for anyone except Sirius.
Yeah.
And then I spent my minerals on auto turrets, because they're in large numbers. They're pretty good. So yeah, I put Tychus in A.
All right. How about you, Stixbender?
I think the only note is that, yeah, not spending any money on gear except Sirius is basically the summary. Although I would say you'll probably, depending on comp, you'll probably end up maybe needing grenade damage for Tychus. Just if you get a chunkier comp, you'll need grenade damage for Tychus. So that's the one thing that I would say. Make an exception to quickly grab grenade gear for Tychus if you're against a chunkier comp, or if you just don't know the damage thresholds well enough, because for some reason P2 damage buff isn't represented in the tooltip for your spells.
Oh,
Thanks, Blizzard. What are you doing there? Anyways, so if you aren't confident in your knowledge of how much damage your grenade does and making sure your grenade one-shots the wave, just grab grenade damage. It's not going to make or break this run to be grabbing one upgrade before you continue upgrade spamming your Sirius. He's plenty strong enough.
all right.
Tychus is a solid A.
Vorazun.
Yeah, that's it. You could use Vega to defend your ally since you have the extra outlaw.
Vorazun, where do we have him?
As soon as she can figure out how to open her eyes, she'll actually be pretty good.
Oracles.
Ironically, the problem here is detection, Miss Cloak Lady.
She's confused.
She can't
P2.
She can't see anything. Anyways, Corsairs are great missile defense, and since you want to have a bunch of Corsairs to defend missiles, you don't need that many. You can have like 4 and probably be fine. But since you will probably want to have a bunch of Corsairs to defend missile defense, because being on the safe side is always better. If it's an air comp, great, Corsairs. Yeah, it's actually a situation where air comp is almost easier. Almost. Probably actually slightly easier. Basically, you're not comp dependent as Vorazun. Don't worry about it. It's just a matter of getting your detection, which for offense is probably Oracles. Oracle Corsair is a totally viable way to play Vorazun. Just slam Oracle Corsair into Amon. Alternatively, you can go Mass Void Ray to attack, and just attack with Mass Void Ray with a couple Oracles, vibing with the Void Rays.
Yeah.
Any one of those options works. Basically. Oh, and of course, your best source of detection as Vorazun is time stop, and that still works. So whenever there's like big bases where you're worried about, don't be. You will just time stop, roll over them. You don't need any detection because time stop decloaks everything,
except the buildings, or rather, the buildings already decloaked from the beginning. So once the time stop wears out, your Shadow Guard will destroy the detection. So the rest of your guys can just delete everything.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I think that Vorazun is a pretty solid choice. She's, I think, somewhere between A and B. I'm not sure exactly where to put her. Oh yeah, and also for the early game, your Dark Pylon giving Veil of Shadows means that all of your buildings will be able to just out-heal Missile Command, except the Dark Pylon itself, sadly. So that at least that does mean you have only one structure you really have to protect until nukes, because until nukes show up, as long as you defend the Dark Pylon, all the other buildings just heal it off.
Sure. So how about you, Tutu?
The hardest part about this is like using you can't use F2A because you gotta keep your Corsairs patrolling. I think you normally have about 6 to 8 at each base. And then I just like with Alarak, instead of Havocs, I put Oracles just standing still, because the cannons sometimes die later on, like they get hit or something. Or I remember getting nuked because I didn't have an Oracle, because I didn't see it, and I lost the cannon and I didn't realize it, and I got nuked. But
I think if you're using cannons, you want to just have like lots of cannons, which, to be fair, Vorazun does usually have a lot of minerals lying around. But if you use cannons, you will need lots of redundancy. If you use Oracles, not so much.
Yeah, so I had both, but I used the DT Oracle plus some Corsairs to help clear the air enemies in the bases. I think she's a solid choice, especially with an ally. You have fewer missiles to fight. So yeah, I put her in B.
Okay. Do you agree with B, Sticksbender?
Okay, B. She feels like bad Alarak. I'd be okay with her in the bottom of A personally, but top of B, bottom of A, either way. She's a solid choice.
Zagara, where do we have him?
Oh, it sucks. Against Missile Command, she's just bad.
Bio launchers.
Bio launchers are good when you can see the missiles, but when you can't see it, it's hard to target it. So I can't target the blur. It's just like spore crawlers get killed. Spore crawlers get killed. The existing solo of this, I realized that this was before. I think the guy used his ally to tank for like the first 3 minutes or something.
Wow.
Which technically is not allowed. But yeah, so Zagara, the guy spreads spore crawlers to, instead of omega worms, you spread spore crawlers
To other bases.
take shots.
That's also what I
And then
did
use
for
Zagara to clear.
All right.
Yeah. I put her in D. Zagara herself, especially with P3, is still really useful, especially with the deep tunneling. Like you can teleport. You can if you want use the roach drop because it's the cooldown so short. You can use it as a kind of a pseudo scan.
Sure. How about you, Stixbender?
Yeah, I can see Zagara in D tier. It's kind of a bit ironic to me that it's like I can actually like see how Artanis could potentially, with much suffering and agony, do a solo that isn't, stretching the rules, whereas Zagara kind of has had to in the existing solo run, although maybe she could as well. But I still agree that Artanis is a tier lower than Zagara. Zagara is really terrible. I do feel like putting Zagara in D tier once again brings me back to, man, Dehaka really shouldn't be in D tier. But that's not the point right now. Zagara D tier is fine.
Zeratul, where do we have him?
Zeratul. So monoliths detect, and they shoot missiles, and they're hit scan, so they don't care too much, and they're AoE, and they stun the missile, so the missile even gets prevented from continuing on its path. Oh yeah, that brings me to another point that I need to bring up later, but that's irrelevant. Yeah, monoliths are great. Cannons are great. You can just build lots of cannons, and if you build enough cannons, you can overwhelm point defense drone. And for many commanders, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so many cannons, that's completely overkill. Now you have like no money to clear with. No. I clear with the cannons.
Yes.
Zeratul. And also use sentries. Use sentries. They cost like entirely gas. You're using entirely minerals on cannons. You entirely gas sentries. Sentries are hit scans. Sentries are great. Sentries can shield batteryify the cannons to repair them when the splitter missiles hit them. Your cannons have 200 shields, which means even if 2 splitter missiles simultaneously fire everything at a cannon, it still only breaks the shield and does no hull damage. And then a shield guard comes and just says, well, anyways, I'll just undo that.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like he's like, I think he's like our lowest S tier here.
Okay. Tutu, did you mine?
You have to mine against missile command.
All right. So, letter.
Yeah. This map, you can trap the artifact.
Yes.
So if you use P2, you can. But I actually recommend P3 for once because you're using pretty much just Zeratul and projections, and the enemies are not stronger. They're just invisible. So they'll break some cannons and stuff, but your whirlwind, your tornado is gonna do a lot of damage. And yeah, you can put like the void arrays on different islands to travel around more quickly if you want. You can also have observers everywhere, and they have great vision. So yeah,
they only get the
easy
supervision. They only get the supervision if you have the third fragment.
They're still good.
They're still good. Yeah. Anyway, easy S. All right. So one more matter.
I would like to note 2 things quickly. Whirlwind from P3 will chase down cloaked units even if you don't have detection for them. Kind of like how I should have noted this with Kerrigan. Kerrigan P2, when she uses a spell, the zap things will hit cloaked units even if you don't have detection for them. Not as relevant for Kerrigan because
Omega worms
just are spawnable detection. But Zeratul, you might end up with Zeratul somewhere where he doesn't have an observer, and then P3 Zeratul could just spin to win and kill everything even without seeing it. And the second note is just to give everyone an idea of the scale of how far Zeratul observers can see in siege mode with the third artifact fragment. assuming you have your Robobay. You need your Robobay for the upgrade to apply. In 1v1, they're doing a patch where they're nerfing the sensor tower vision radius by 10%. This makes it only slightly greater than the vision radius of Zeratul's observers. As in, the scan radius of the 1v1 sensor tower will be basically the same as the vision radius of a Zeratul observer. So that is your reference for how far Zeratul's observers can see. So yeah, if you could put those on the high ground, you'll be able to find the crystals pretty easily.
Then put the Ocular symbiote on the observer.
And then they will see further than a pre-nerf sensor tower's sensing radius. That is what that would be.
You just need 2 for the whole map.
Omniscient Zeratul.
Anyway, so one more matter that needs taken care of. Do we promote Dehaka to C tier?
Yes, I really think he needs to be C tier.
2-2.
Sure.
All right. I mean, he just leapfrogged maybe one commander, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Anyway,
The one note I wanted to make, by the way, was that Stukov. There is a warning here for Stukov. If the Alexander throws its tentacle at a missile, it'll mind control the missile. And what can happen is it can throw its tentacle at a nuke. And if it does this right before the nuke lands, then what will happen is, because the nuclear explosion is trigger based, it will still damage your stuff, but your guys will stop shooting it because the nuke now technically belongs to Stukov. So your units will decide it's an allied nuke, and then it will still blow them up. This only applies if the Alexander decides to throw its tentacle at a nuke that was at full health and about to detonate in like half a second.
it's a you problem if it happens.
But this did literally happen to me in my solo run, where the bunkers were deciding to shoot down the nuke, and then the Alexander said, "Stop!
Hey,
Don't!"
hey, Stick Spender, Stick Spender,
And my entire expansion blew up, and I still managed to win the solo.
Stick
So,
Spender,
yeah, Stukov's got this.
Stick Spender. Send that replay to Zeus. Zeus, put that in. I need that in here. Stick Spender, send that clip to Zeus.
My expansion just blew up, and I'm pretty sure that was in the winning run. It just, like, I won the solo anyways, despite losing an entire fully saturated expansion and all the bunkers around it to a nuke.
Anyway,
Stukov's got this mutation under control.
all right. So S tier, who's the best Stet boy, right?
I was thinking it was Minsk,
Arcturus?
actually. Yeah.
Stetmann still has to kind of worry about nukes. Like you gotta manually use corruptors.
Yes.
I don't know if
Just
Gary.
exist with bunkers.
Do PDDs block Gary's attack now?
I heard something about that. I haven't tested it. I heard that they actually changed in the latest patch.
I think
so
yes.
that Gary's attack get blocked by PDD.
They get blocked.
Okay, so that makes Gary a fraction as powerful against missile command. It's like not even close. That's a huge nerf.
Not Igor, though.
He still should be able to solo the map, obviously, but that is a huge hit to Gary's power level. And it means he can't just delete nukes anymore with Gary Hero Unit. So, yeah, I think Mansk is better because his bunkers just made that he doesn't have to worry at all about missile command.
S now correctly ordered, right?
Another note, by the way, I forgot to mention this. I am like 99% sure that Contaminated Strike decloaks anything it hits. Yes? Yes. Pretty sure I've used this as... I swear
yes,
this is like
it does.
I've used...
It does.
Yes,
Because
okay.
I used it on Banshees.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I used it on Banshees too. I'm like, I use it on Banshees, right? It's been so long since I've played Manx where I actually used units and DSOs instead of just ESOs, because I keep getting ESO things with these last few games I've been playing with Manx. Anyways, yes, Contaminated Strike decloaks. So he really does have scan, basically.
Yes.
Especially if you're P1.
Nice.
Manx is so good. Yeah, Manx is top of S tier, and then Stetmann, and then Zeratul.
Okay, who's top of A?
I mean, you already know I felt like putting Swann in S tier, but, I don't know if Tutu agrees with that.
What do you think, Tutu?
His Hercules is nice. He has good missile defense. His clearing is less good.
Yeah, it's not amazing clearing, admittedly. I personally really tunnel vision on defense whenever it's against missile command because Gosh.
I think Sirius clears pretty well
Yeah, Tychus is good.
So Tychus
I
top
can
of
see
A?
Tychus and Swann.
because they're Terrans.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're Terrans. And Missile Command, that mutator that makes us want Terrans.
All right. Then next is Karax.
Karax. Okay.
Then Kerrigan. Kerrigan. There you go.
Oh, really? I thought that it was okay.
Because the Omega Worm transporting workers is pretty good.
It's
yeah,
pretty good.
Worm on workers is pretty good.
There's also creep heal.
Yeah, okay,
To
sure.
a lesser extent, omnipresent detection. Yeah.
Oh, and the fact that if you just have worms everywhere, then finding crystals is just a matter of like technically, if you have worms at the top of the ramp, you could just spit worms at the bottom of the ramp and be like, okay, the crystals are this way, make a worm train.
Also, immobilization wave's still pretty good.
Scout with the worms.
It'll
Yeah,
probably
mobilization
delete
wave is still pretty
missiles too.
It's still pretty good, although I would note that I was recommending P2, so then it wouldn't matter. But if you don't use P2, then immobilization wave is still pretty good. Yeah, and it does delete every missile it touches, except if you have P2, it doesn't delete nukes, but deletes everything else. So
Sure.
because nukes have 100 HP. For if anyone is wondering, nukes have 100 HP. That may be important information for you.
And then Phoenix or Alarak? I think
Alarak's above Phoenix.
You think
Alarak's better. Alarak is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for B, who's...
But only P3. If he's not P3, he's D tier.
Okay, so for B, is it Vorazun top of B?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Stukov.
Oh yeah, Stukov. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Bunker's
To be
still
honest,
pretty good.
there's even an argument for putting Stukov above Vorazun. No, Vorazun first, then Stukov. But Stukov is good. Stukov's really good. Vorazun's really good. They're both really good. They're both, top
I
tier,
think
B tier.
Abathur might be...
They're both top B tier.
I think Abathur might be bottom of B. Because of the early game?
I think he's better than Raynor.
I think he's better than both the Terrans. In
Really?
this case, actually.
So correctly ordered?
Man, we were just talking about how great Terran is, and then Abathur's better than both the Terrans here. Good job, Abathur. Well, unless you count Stukov as a Terran, in which case, the true Terran. The People's Terran.
The People's Terran? The People's Terran is Arcturus, who's an S.
No. Everyone loved Stukov as a character, though. Remember, Stukov was a greatly beloved character. He's the reason everyone wants to see the UED back, because of Stukov. Anyways, I personally would put Jimmy above Nova, but we all have talked about how I feel about Nova Marines and how they keep dying for a mysterious reason. So sure, Nova and then Jimmy.
Let's call it... Sure, yeah, let's call it fixed. For C, who's better, Han Horner or Dehaka?
Dehaka came from D, so Han Horner was already there.
All right, so...
I still feel like Dehaka's better than Han Horner, actually. Personally.
Oh, really?
I think that Kerrigan.
I don't think it matters.
Of trouble.
I don't think this is worth discussing.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We've already discussed this ad nauseum.
I'll be okay with that.
They're both meh commanders. All right, then that is our tier list for this week. It's a pretty A heavy and B heavy tier list for something that we discussed for nearly 2 hours. My goodness. Anyway, I'm gonna see how many videos I can split out of this. That'll be fun. So guys, watch Tutu and Stix Batter's channels. Like their videos and subscribe to them. I didn't say mine. Say them. Anyway, I will see you guys next time.